Good morning, guys, and welcome to this week's session of C.U.T.E for Teams, the office hours. You'll notice that I'm not Ricardo Wilkins, your normal host. I'm Stacy Mildenberger. Typically, I am running the Q&A for Ricardo's C.U.T.E sessions. And today he's out of the office, so I have taken the opportunity to jump in the driver's seat. I'll be here with you for the next half hour, and I look forward to having your questions. So feel free to drop those in the Q&A. Feel free to type in your questions, and I'll do my best to respond to those. I can tell you I have a couple of topics that I'll be tackling today around some really awesome resources that we have recently made available to our customers. One of which I've had a strong hand in making sure it comes to fruition, and it has certainly been helpful in all of my conversations with my customers. And if you are not familiar with it, I think you'll find it helpful too. The other resource that I want to talk about is a very amazing Teams meetings education series that customer success managers like me across the United States got together and provided over the course of May. If you are a customer of Ricardo's or mine, you probably received an email invite for those, but we understand that calendars don't always correspond with what Microsoft is presenting for you guys, and we have now put that content together in a blog post that I'll share. In fact, let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll talk through that together. Okay, terrific. So in a blog post recently made, and you can see the author is our own Ricardo Wilkins. We posted just yesterday morning that we have created a new YouTube playlist. It complements a previous series we've done around Teams meetings for government. It's our spring edition, which is so funny. We're moving rapidly into summer here in Tallahassee, Florida. And I hope that you are looking forward to enjoying some good weather wherever you may be joining from today, and of course over our Memorial Day weekend. But in this blog post, Ricardo makes available the YouTube playlist of the content that was provided in our last sessions over a 4-week series that focused specifically on Teams meetings. And believe it or not, there is so much to know and take advantage of in Teams meetings that we spread our content over 4 weeks. And each Friday during those 4 weeks, we covered several areas of Teams meetings. All that you would like to know from running a Teams meeting for before the meeting. In fact, I have a session in that first week's before the meeting content where I talk about setting meeting expectations and roles and access. Also, we covered in the second week session the during the meeting, which of course takes everyone through every setting in a Teams meeting and how to maximize your participation. Then also after the meeting. Believe it or not, after the meeting is a very crucial time because once the meeting is over, then everyone has probably outcomes and things that they need to drive to that were discussed during the meeting. And so we talk about ways that Teams can help you do that. And then our last session, which was this past Wednesday, was on best practices. And we talked about accessibility in Teams and troubleshooting common Teams meeting issues. We even covered a deep dive into the Teams meetings roadmap, and that's part of what I'll talk about today. We also talked about just the advantages of using Teams as a platform, the various things that you can plug into Teams that you may already be using to get the most out of your Teams experience. So there, as you can see, is a ton of content out there. I'll go ahead and click on to show you quickly the list of this. The content was presented in 2.5 to 4 hour sessions on those Wednesdays when we did the presentations. But rather than give you 4 hours worth of videos for each one of those. We've actually broken them down, and I say we, but I really should be thanking Ricardo for that. Ricardo did the editing to make sure that these videos were in more consumable chunks. So you can see each topic and they're numbered, right? So our first session, our first week is numbered from 100 to 104, and you can see each of the topic areas. We've separated the introduction out. We have the before the meeting, the ways to access meetings, setting meeting expectations, meeting extensibility, and the list goes on and on and on. I think in total, we probably have about 16 hours of Teams related training content here that you guys can take advantage of and look through at your convenience. One of the things that I'll note that you may not have taken advantage of before, but certainly would come into play here. We don't expect you to sit down and watch all 16 hours of these videos. We understand that that would be quite probably the overkill. But what you can do is pick these topics as you need, as they come up and as they're relevant in your work. And when you click on any of these and you go to review them in YouTube, there's a playback option that I use quite frequently when watching videos of meetings that I've missed or content that I want to glean very quickly or as quickly as I can. You can play back these videos at perhaps 1.5 times the speed. And believe it or not, you can really gain a lot of content that way. You can pick up a lot of notes and tips just by listening at perhaps faster speed. So keep that in mind when you are seeking out to enjoy these videos. You do have the option to maybe play them back a little quicker. I know me with my Southern drawl can be probably played back at time and a half or 1.75 speed, and you'd still have listenability to what you're hearing from me. So definitely wanted to point that out. We do have quick URLs associated with that, so I can drop those URLs in the chat. And oh, I see we have a question in the chat. One moment, let's check that out. Okay, so the question at hand, and I'll go ahead and publish it for everyone and respond in the Q&A via typing and also give you the audible here. So I believe there are several of the sessions from our 4-week, from our 4-series session that we just finished, and those videos are there. I'll give you the URL to access that in the chat. And then I'll also share to you a different series. It's Webinar Wednesdays that's being conducted by one of our peers, one of the peers that works with Ricardo and I. And in the Webinar Wednesdays, they definitely focus on delivering meetings out to the public from government tenants. So I will share the link for that. In fact, I'll go ahead and type it in and share it since we are on that topic. Fortunately, it has another aka.ms link, so okay, so you guys have the Webinar Wednesdays link there in your chat, so I would definitely suggest you reference that. And then I'll also put in our link to the blog post that talks about these trainings that you see on my screen here. And that will take you to a direct link to that. And then you also have the links to the previous series we did back in the fall. And there's so much good information in both of those series. And they are digestible. They're broken up in those topics. So you can dive into just the topic that you want at any given time. Okay, so that would be the second link that I'm putting into the chat now. The Teams meetings for government is the blog post that's going to get you to this list of content, this list of those series recordings, and you'll get to meet all of the CSMs from across the U.S. We're a fun group. we do our best to make this content entertaining while also educating you and helping you leverage our tools in a way that is successful for you and your teams and your organizations. Okay, so we are about 10 minutes in, and I definitely want to make sure I have an opportunity to talk through an additional piece here. So I'm going to change what I'm sharing. Bear with me for a moment. Okay, so what I'm pulling up now is our Teams feature communications guide that we are building step by step with our customers and with the message center posts to help everyone keep track of what is being developed for Microsoft Teams. If you have access to Microsoft Teams, if you have access to the Teams Admin Center or the Admin Center for Microsoft 365, then you can follow along with the Message Center post that comes from Teams Engineering that dictates what the rollout plans are for new features into Teams. And if you have that access, I'm sure you're well aware that those posts have been quite prolific over the last few months. We have probably around 60 separate features that we've been tracking just in this quarter alone. And in order to help ourselves as customer success managers, we put together this feature communications guide, and then we realized it wasn't just us who needs this communication guide. We really wanted to share this directly out to the customers. So hopefully you've heard of this guide. I will also put the public link to this guide in the chat in a moment. But what this guide empowers us to do for you and you to do for yourself, whether you have Message Center access in the Admin Center or not, is to see the timeline and what has been delivered so far for Teams. So if you are an end user sitting in your office and you're trying to plan out your next meeting and you want to do something with breakout rooms, but you're not sure what all is available or coming around that particular feature, then this guide is going to help be that reference for you. We recently did have a release to breakout rooms, and I'll scroll through that in a moment. But first, I just want to take you just a little bit further into the creation of this guide and the care and feeding of it, the populating of it as we go. So as a customer success manager, like I said, we knew we needed something to help us keep track of the copious amounts of features that are being rolled out this quarter. And so we had previously, maybe about a year or so ago, had another guide that was being developed that did part of this. It told part of the story. And the author, went on to do other tasks, and that tool, that piece of information got hung up, and then we went on and started leaning again just into the Message Center. And the Message Center is awesome. It helps definitely keep us on top of what's coming, but the Message Center does not update when items are already shipped. So as someone who is looking for a feature in their tenant, there was really no way for you to know that as of such and such date, I should be able to do this in my Teams environment. And this guide gave us the opportunity to do that. So as the Message Center posts come out and they promise or they schedule out when features should land, we build a slide for each one of those Message Center post announcements. So each slide in this deck is dedicated to one of those features that has been highlighted as coming to the government cloud in this quarter. And then as we learn from Teams Engineering that those features have been rolled out, officially launched, in addition to seeing that information on the roadmap, which is linked here, you would also see that information here because we'll take the slide dedicated to each feature, and as it is verified as being rolled out, we move it to a section in this guide called the shipped section. And if it is there in the shipped section, that tells you as a customer and me as a CSM that that feature should be available to you in your tenant. Now, the should word is an interesting word there. And let me say that the governance around the team's usage at your agency could very well be different than the governance of a team's deployment at another agency, and likely is for various reasons. Our customers can tailor how they deploy teams. And in those instances, features as they're released, they're either available by default, or perhaps they are available but aren't turned on by default, meaning they're not enabled when they land. They have to be enabled by your IT admin. Or perhaps they haven't been rolled out yet. But this guide helps you to determine which of those is the case at your agency. So for instance, we have now the ability to track or to add a time clock in a breakout room in a Teams meeting. If you didn't know that's available, that is available, and we can reference it here in the guide. But that feature, when it landed, it didn't have to be turned on. It didn't have to be engaged somehow by the IT admins. It just became a part of the breakout room feature in Teams meetings. So as an end user, as soon as your environment got that feature, that meant that you had that feature and could then use that feature without concern necessarily or restriction, because it was a native feature in Teams that didn't require any enablement from the IT admin side. Now, some of these features do require that. And in those cases, the slide dedicated to that feature will tell the IT admin and you as an end user what's required. So it will either be enabled by default, like I mentioned, or it will have to be engaged or turned on in your organization. And that information being in this deck means that as an end user, you know either it's been shipped because it's in the shipped section of this document, and I don't see it, perhaps. I don't see it in my Teams environment. If that's the case, and it is said to be on by default in our guide, then that would definitely be a time to reach out to your IT admin and let them know that you're not seeing the latest and greatest in Teams, because Teams should be automatically updating for you. And if it's not, that's certainly something that Microsoft, your CSM, and your IT admin would probably want to know about, so that we can make sure that you're getting the features and able to take advantage of those features as you see fit. Okay, well, I think I've done a fairly good job of talking through how this guide came to be. Now, let me take a moment and show you a couple of highlights from the guide while I have you. So here you have just the front slide, which you've been looking at as I've been talking, I'm sure. But I want to point out the published date and tell you that additionally, from message center posts falling in the admin center to the slide creation here as either a pending feature or a shipped feature, and then as Teams engineering gives the word that features have been shipped, there's some testing that's done, and all of that is happening every single week, every single day of every single week on our side, on the Microsoft side. And the guide is being tweaked and updated and kept up to date and current every week as well. So we typically will publish this guide to the link I'll share to you in a moment every single week. And our goal is to publish that as early in the day on Mondays as possible. And those Monday publishings will reflect all message center posts, all updates, and all Teams engineering engagements and confirmations of what's shipped from the prior week. Now, this week, we actually published on Tuesday as well, because we published Monday, And then we got word that there were confirmations of a few additional things being shipped. And even though it was not specifically tagged as a Microsoft Teams release in the Message Center post, it was tagged as a Microsoft 365 service. We wanted to dedicate a slide in this deck for whiteboard coming to Teams, because that is such a huge feature that we know as CSMs that our customers are very eager to receive. So on Monday, we published all the updates from the prior week. And then on Tuesday, we realized that that didn't take into account the Message Center post about whiteboard. So we added that. And then we added a couple of additional shipped notes as well. So we published again on Tuesday this week. That's atypical. Typically, they will update every Monday, midday-ish. And then we will, of course, update this date. So you'll always have the reference for this date. Now, next Monday, or this coming Monday happens to be a holiday. Will we post on Monday? Probably not. I have all ideas it will be Tuesday morning. But when you go to reference this next week, if you get an opportunity to check it out, you'll see the most recent published date. And I'm sure by midday Tuesday, it will reflect that June 2nd date. The goal here, the ultimate goal here, the reason that this deck is so well received and we definitely are committed to continue updating it, is that we want you to be able to have a quick reference to what has shipped out to the government cloud. We are confirming as Microsoft that features are landing. And once you have that confirmation, you can go out and test them, you can tinker with them, you can give them the old kick of the tires, try them out and see how you want to use them going forward. And again, like I said, if you expect it to be there and our slide says it should be there and it's not there, then that's certainly something to raise to your IT administrators. Now, in the ship section, there are probably, goodness, let's just take a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we're up to 10 or 12. And any of these that I'm scrolling by, if these are new to you, by all means, go and visit this guide after I share the link if you don't already have it and take a look. But you can see that there are, gosh, there's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think I'm almost to the list here. There's maybe 17, 18 new features that have landed this quarter alone. Even more. That's exciting. So as you have access to this, you can take a look and review all of the new features that have come for the government cloud, see when they landed. Okay, now we're at the end. So we're actually at about 23 new features that have come to Teams in the recent days. Now, as I scrolled through, I noticed one that I want to make sure that I highlight, and forgive me if this is jarring to you watching here, but I definitely wanted to touch on, oh, well, here's one I can mention before we move on, and that is the new breakout room functionality. So I mentioned this earlier, that there are 3 tweaks to the breakout room feature that you should note. If this is something that you use regularly in your environment, you may notice that you now have room assignment retention, meaning in your recurring meetings, you'll be able to maintain those room assignments from meeting to meeting, which I think is pretty cool and very helpful if you have some standardized breakout room usage already. You also have the ability to reassign participants while rooms are open. Used to be that you had to do that when breakout rooms were closed. Now you can do that while they're open as well. And then that third piece, which was the set timers for the breakout sessions, that's the one I called your attention to. And while I'm here, let me just state a couple of things about each one of these slides. So we're trying to maintain some serious control to make these flow seamlessly between feature to feature so that you're not jarred as the end user of this, so that you're able to reference particular parts of these slides and understand what you're getting. So each feature slide is going to have, of course, the title, which typically will be verbatim of the Message Center post. It will reference the Message Center post number. It will also reference the roadmap ID. By clicking this, you'll land on Microsoft's official roadmap, and we reference that on every slide that we can because each of these features is being tracked there as well. And technically, the Microsoft roadmap is the final word in what's released and what is coming. This is complementary to that. So we reference that, and then we pull the content from the Message Center post to share the details in a way that makes sense to any Microsoft user of what's coming to Teams. And we've numbered our slides as well. We heard that as feedback from our initial posts so that you can see the slide number and reference it with your CSM if you have particular questions. And then we also add on the bottom right, if it's shipped, the release date. So we, on this one, had a specific release date. We know that as of May 19th, that these 3 additional features were available to breakout rooms. And we published that here for you so that you have that reference. Let's say it's May 28th today, and you go to tinker with this and you're not seeing it. Well, that would be something that you'd bring to the attention of your IT or your customer success manager. But I was going to this one. The meetings limit increased from 300 to 1,000 participants. We covered this very, very heavily on our Teams meetings series that I talked about at the top of the hour. We definitely want you all to be aware that now your Teams meetings can hold more participants, which is such great news, I think, especially when you're talking about needing to reach outside of your organization and accommodate more participation in meetings. I do want to point out while we're here that there is a caveat in this extra participation in Teams meetings, and that is that breakout rooms are not currently supported in meetings beyond those 300 initial users. So be aware of that in these larger meetings, you are limited in the breakout function as opposed to breakout function in 300 or fewer meetings. So just FYI on that. Also, let's see, I do want to skip ahead and we're running low on time. So let me touch base on one of the features in our pending section that I think is going to be key in your work in the government cloud with your agency and with other agencies. So today in Teams, you have the ability to chat one-on-one to folks outside of your organization if your Teams tenant allows external federation, meaning external chat with other agencies. That may be locked down in your agency. It's fairly common. We see that on occasion as CSMs that some agencies just close the door on external chat. But it can be enabled and it can be controlled in a way that enables conversation, enables communication and collaboration while maintaining control over who gets to do that. And the way to do that is by federating with particular domains. So you can target other agencies specific to their domain and connect only with those that make sense for your organization and exclude all others. So you could set up federation between your agency and another agency that has common missions or things that that your workforce and their workforce work together commonly. You can tie federation down to just that domain. So anyone on that domain can talk with anyone in your organization in Teams via chat one-on-one, and they can do that today. The new piece is that you have the ability to do group chat, or you will have the ability to do group chat with external users as well. And that's going to be key when you're talking about needing to maintain connectivity between departments and separate agencies. So keep that in mind when you're determining how you want to perhaps enable this chat federation. Okay, so I see we're at 11:30. I'll see if there is questions in the chat. I know that I'm going to go ahead and end, but I'll respond to the question in the chat that I have here that I haven't shared offline. So watch for that response. And I owe you, I said I would share out the link to this guide. So let me make sure I do that before going offline. Okay, and let me just say thank you very much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you on future meetings, and I know that we'll have Ricardo back next week, so it'll be the good old gang back with our C.U.T.E for Teams office hours. So thanks again, everyone, for joining, and look forward to talking to you soon. Bye-bye.